There are plenty of works on the internet that take full advantage of the fact that they're hosted on their own website in order to aid in their presentation. Actually, that's a complete lie. I can only think of like 4, 5 at a push. But one of the earliest ones to do this is a little thing called Homestuck, and it's most likely responsible for a shift in the way we think about presenting web fiction. So let's talk about how it does this, why it's awesome, and the effect that it had on other media. Most of this video doesn't really spoil the plot of the comic, but there is a section that spoils bits late into Act 5, so if you haven't read up to page 4109, you might want to skip that section. Don't worry though, it's only halfway through the comic. Yeah, while I recommend you go and read Homestuck for yourself because it's actually pretty good, I won't blame you if you ignore the spoiler warning, just this once. Oh, and before we get started, I just want to give a big thanks to my friend, Some Guy, who volunteered to write and edit this video. Haha, thanks, Elliot. Before Homestuck came around, most webcomics were just that. Comics. Despite being on a web page on which the artist or author could do anything, the work itself was mostly constrained to images. Some of them tried to emulate traditional comics, and some of them didn't, but no matter what, the story was exclusively contained here. Homestuck did things pretty differently to all of this though. It takes the form of the single panel webcomic you'd see on forums or chans. It can have one or more images and text below it, but it's not part of the image itself. Unlike those other single panel comics though, Homestuck is hosted on its own site, and this gave the author, Andrew Hussie, a lot of control over how the work was presented. One of the most important aspects of Homestuck's presentation are the pestalogs. These collapsible segments contain basically all of the comic's dialogue, and they're the real meat of the comic. The vast majority of the words in Homestuck are contained in pestalogs, and there are a lot of words. Now imagine that Homestuck was a traditional webcomic. Not only would you definitely not be able to fit anywhere near as much text on each page, but you also wouldn't be able to just write the text. Each line would have to be in a speech bubble being spoken by a person, and if you wanted a Homestuck-like amount of dialogue, then, well, that's a lot of drawings. Admittedly, Homestuck's dialogue could be made much shorter to fit that form, but Andrew Hussie also utilized a tool that definitely couldn't be replicated with just images: animation. Homestuck uses Flash for animations and other interactive segments. These range from simply clicking menu options, to walking around the environments in the comic, and more. Hussie could do this because, well, it was his website, and since he hadn't given himself the constraints that came with the webcomic format of old, he was free to present each page in basically any manner he wanted. In this sense, it broke the format that other webcomics at the time used, and this format screw set the tone for how the rest of the comic would use and break that format, and even its own format. Homestuck's approach to these format screws is to take an aspect of its format that's been built up over however much time and break it quick, but then go back to how it was before. Despite how cool the flashes are, they aren't the majority of the pages in the comic. Apart from the fact that it would require a hell of a lot of work, if you just threw flash after flash at an audience, the novelty would wear off. So after a flash is finished, we return to the single panel format for 100 or so more pages until the next flash. But despite Homestuck handing out format screws for us to eat up like we've known nothing but years of bitter format screw famine, it's still building up its own format. Each page always has a title and at least one panel, which never exceeds this space. There's always a link to the next page, and the appearance of the site overall never really changes. Homestuck keeps building this format over the course of 3,763 pages, until it changes something big during Act 5. If you're spoiler adverse, you should probably skip ahead to the time on screen right about now. Up until this point in the story, Andrew Hussie's self-insert character has been in control of the narrative, but once Disc 2 of Homestuck is damaged, someone else takes over, and this is signaled by a change in the website's style. Once Doc Scratch takes control of the story, the white and grey background is replaced with dark green. It's more than just a neat trick though. From this change, we can gather a few things about Doc Scratch and the nature of the takeover. Keep in mind that this isn't the first time that Doc Scratch has narrated the comic. He briefly narrates for a little bit, starting at page 3614, in which he speaks in white text on a light grey background. This isn't just because he's a smug prick, but it's also because at this point, he doesn't have enough influence over the story to change the background. However, when Disc 1 is no longer in play, he changes the background colour so you can actually read his text without highlighting everything. After all, he is an excellent host. So now we can gather what a character is capable of when they get this level of control over the story. By changing the website's style, Doc Scratch demonstrates control over something that, up until now, we didn't think anyone could control. Over the course of 3,700 pages, Homestuck built up its format in which this changes, but never this. So to demonstrate what a near-omniscient narrator is truly capable of when given access to the narrative, we get a change that we didn't know we could get. But another key change is the addition of the banner up here, on which another story unfolds. Now we get two stories. One narrated by Doc Scratch, and another following Andrew Hussie attempting to get Disc 2 back. But But all of this pales in comparison to one of my favourite moments in the comic, which happens during Cascade, the end of Act 5 animation. Up until this point, for 4,000 pages, no panel in Homestuck has extended past these borders. But then, when Jack uses the red miles, the screen expands. And oh my gosh, it's so freaking cool. And the reason that it's so cool is that, yet again, this format has been built up over the course of thousands of pages, and that makes breaking the format all the more satisfying. The screen getting bigger here is mostly for emphasis. It's the biggest animation in the comic so far, with lots of plot development, high stakes, and climaxes to a fair few plot threads. Why not go all out in its presentation? Finally, after all of this, the comic goes back to presenting the story the way it always has. This is the key to what makes these big format screws so effective. Drastic, but temporary changes, only happening after thousands of pages. Another reason that this is so effective is, as far as I know, Homestuck is the first work of web fiction to utilize all of this, or at least the first one that got mainstream appeal. If someone could point me to a work pre-Homestuck that utilizes animation, interactivity, style changes, and a bunch of other goodies, please let me know. I'd love to be proven wrong. Mainly because I'm a big poo-poo head. Come on, guy. Did you really need to write that into the script? Are you serious?
Elliot, my friend, I think you came down with a case of getting owned.
Act 5 finished on the 25th of October, 2011, and I don't think it's a coincidence that, since then, we've seen a lot more works on the internet that aren't just traditional webcomics. By a lot more, of course, I mean more than zero. It's a lot more work to tell a story this way as opposed to doing a traditional webcomic. That being said, there's one or two works that have taken aspects of Homestuck's presentation and used them for themselves, while still presenting the work in a unique way. Let's take Ava's Demon, for example, which started in 2012. It also uses the single panel format, has animations, and changes backgrounds occasionally, but the story is told entirely within the panels, with no text outside of them, and even changes the book that the panels appear in when it's appropriate. 17776 came out in 2017, and while it wasn't directly inspired by Homestuck, there are way too many similarities for it to not be indirectly inspired by it. Both are primarily dialogue focused, where each character's text has a specific color, and both have the dialogue interspersed with images, GIFs, and videos. 17776 takes us a step further though. There's no other elements on the site but the story itself. No navigation, no banners, no news, nothing. This one's a personal favourite of mine, and you owe it to yourself to read it, but I should probably stop talking about it before I get distracted and gush over it for about 20 minutes. And of course, there's the MS Paint Fan Adventures site, hosting plenty of works that take Homestuck's format and build and iterate on it to create something unique. These works, and other works that I haven't mentioned, aren't really breaking their format when they do this, but that's because they don't really need to. With Homestuck, the format screws subvert expectations, which is one of the best ways it could have gotten people to pay attention. It's as if Andrew Hussey is screaming, "Hey, everyone! Look at all this stuff that's possible!" It may not be the biggest factor in this awakening to the possibilities of the web, but considering how popular Homestuck was in its peak, I don't doubt for a second that it was significant. And that's why it annoys me so much that instead of using Flash or HTML5, Homestuck.com currently uses YouTube videos. Guy, can you believe this? Homestuck.com uses YouTube videos of all things. God, what were they thinking?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, maybe I actually need to explain this a little bit. Homestuck's animations and interactable segments were originally made in Flash, but now we live in 2018 and Flash is a steaming pile of big dog doo-doo. Flash sucks so much that modern browsers don't even include it. It's that bad. But because of this, Homestuck was in a little bit of a pickle, considering how much of it relied on Flash. However, after Viz Media acquired publishing rights for Homestuck and put it on a new site, they fixed the Flash issue by temporarily replacing what they could with YouTube videos. And this sucks. Yeah, I know a bunch of the Flashes were just animations, and could easily be replaced with a video, but by passing the videos off to YouTube specifically, Hussey gave up complete control over how the work was presented. The YouTube embeds come with extras that can't be disabled. Want to disable the related bar, or the progress bar, or hide the channel icon, or hide thumbnails, or make the video automatically load and play? Too bad, you can't do any of that. And who knows what changes YouTube will make to their embeds next. Plus, the presence of the YouTube videos ruins some of the surprises too. This YouTube embed is a lot wider than the others. I wonder why that is. The shitty thing is, this isn't just limited to the animations. Some interactables and walkarounds still haven't been ported properly, so instead of being able to walk around the land of wind and shade, we get... Wait, what is this? Oh. Oh no. Oh no. To be clear, I think using plain old videos is fine. For flashes that are just video, at least. It's more so handing it off to YouTube specifically hands off a lot of control over the presentation of the comic, which is giving up one of Homestuck's greatest strengths. Given that, I hope you understand where I'm coming from when I say that this port is probably one of the worst decisions made in Homestuck's history. Maybe I'm just getting irritated over nothing, but Homestuck isn't just another webcomic to me. I absolutely adore its presentation, and to me at least, it feels utterly unique among everything on the internet. It's a reminder of all the cool storytelling tricks you can do with the web, and a testament to its storytelling power. And that's why I'm so irritated. Even though it's temporary, something special and unique and inspiring about a work I adore has vanished. And because of that, until it's changed back, Homestuck doesn't really feel like Homestuck to me. It just feels like a bunch of YouTube videos pretending to be.
Is this working? Okay, guys, I figured out how to hijack the narrative of Swelliot's videos, and now I can tell you what you've all been waiting for. My origin story. So one day I was... Jesus Christ, Elliot, put my gun down! Look, I'm okay? Please don't hurt me!